This is a continuation of the last episode in the general themes of the hippie or psychedelic songs. These dominated American and British music from the mid-1960s into the 70s. Part 1, I covered that artists, most musicians, particularly rock and roll, and writers, unless they became big names, are marginalized in society. Society discourages these careers. They then congregate and in their craft tell about a world in which they wouldn't be marginalized, a world in which one is free to choose what they want to be without judgment. This combined with the concern and fear of having to fight in the Vietnam War led to the hippie movement. I am through several episodes looking at how the hippie songs contributed to the hippie movement. The previous video, I spoke of how hippie songs can be written. Usually hippie songs are deeper songs with more meaning and whose music adds to the overall psychedelic experience or greater rebellion from American society. In a few episodes, I will look at individual hippie songs. Hallucinogenic drugs were a big part of the hippie culture, but my interest will not be so much if a song seems to be about drugs. The same of love songs. The early part of the hippie movement was a time when many of the hallucinogenic drugs were still legal. Originally, the drugs were more for the experience compared to the complete escape it later was, although the escape was fairly common as well. When I say escape, it is about something other than enjoying the experience of life. It was about leaving life, which is why deaths from overdoses were so common. One might ask, why did this happen? Often the answer given is that the drugs created it. I instead feel it is an overall societal problem. If a society does a much better job at helping to develop a certain mindset, then not so many will seek to escape their reality, which is done through the numerous addictions we have available to us. A part of this is we need to be taught how to live and not avoid life. I am interested in the range of interpretations of these songs and their effects on the hippie mindset. If a song is written as a simple love song during the age of rebellion or counterculture, I find it likely that the song has deeper roots than the obvious, and that these roots speak to other things. I believe this to be true for drug songs as well. To write lyrics only about drugs is fairly superficial and caters only to commercialism. That may be the case at times, but in others it is deeper. It is more about the experience of things, about understanding deeper concepts of life, spirituality, and the mind. A love song may sound like it is about a lost love or current love. The song may at a deeper level be about the love of humanity, or it could be about the loss for what humanity could be. A love song could also be about the experiences of life. It could be about the songwriter's lack of receiving love in life, love outside of romantic love. A song about lost love could be for what could have been. This might have been about war and how instead of love, support, and peace between countries, there is instead a brutal existence of massive slaughter of human beings and complete disruption of life. If the purpose of the song was about drugs for commercial purposes, that is to sell records, I don't think they would have written many of the verses as poetically as they did, because they wouldn't have had to. They could have simply mentioned the drug experience, and that would have been enough. One of the interpretations of seemingly drug songs could be tapping into the different meditative experiences. I'm fairly unaware of what I'm about to mention, but I have heard it said that if one becomes very adept at certain meditations, one can duplicate the effects of psychedelic drugs. This is because of how a group of illegal and legal drugs work on us. After all, we have similar chemicals inside us that use the same cellular receptors. That is, drugs can work because they penetrate certain and maybe all internal cells of a person in the same way. One example is our body produces opioids, which are chemicals for pain relief. The receptors of opioids are the same ones that allow morphine, heroin, oxycodone, Vicodin, opium, and others to work. The ability to produce a psychedelic experience, then, is about a meditation that produces in our body similar chemicals to those of hallucinogenic drugs. Many hippie songs were about being out on the road. There was a sacredness in this, being free and filling life with constant new experiences. I suppose in a similar way, this is what drugs also did. It was about expanded consciousness. Their worries were gone, and they would just enjoy the moment. Many hippies wound up in places like Morocco, Mexico, and what was called the Hippie Trail. The Hippie Trail was started in the 1950s by the Beatniks, an early Bohemian form of the hippies. There was a fascination with Eastern philosophy and spirituality. They then took to the road to see it. Many would buy cars in Western Europe, particularly England, and then begin driving east. The route was then from Western Europe, often by road, through the Balkan countries, on to Istanbul, through the Arab countries, then Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. They would wind up in a handful of cities in India, Kathmandu in Nepal, Bangkok in Thailand, and the country of Sri Lanka. Once they arrived to their final destination, meditation and philosophy would often be studied to enhance the experience of life. Road trips were about the experience of day-to-day, and not as much about getting from one place to another. Many Australians and New Zealanders do a modified 9-month reversal of this trip and wind up in London at the end of it, but also having visited the eastern mentioned places. Some of the famous Beatniks in doing this trip would influence such bands as the Beatles to do the same. It then opened up a floodgate of hippies undertaking this. The following will be about symbolism in hippie songs. Being on the road symbolized the longing for freedom and the desire to break away from conventional norms. Also, songwriters would often use trains, roads, and the act of traveling as metaphors representing life's journey, a person's evolution, or the search for meaning and purpose. Hippie songs were filled with symbols and metaphors. A sunny day may be about possibilities. The sun and moon might signify change, cycles, enlightenment, hope, and mysticism. Nature was often sung about, as it was seen as pure, in contrast to the perceived corruption of urban life and modern society. Animals like eagles, lions, and wolves were used to represent freedom. Mountains and valleys often represent challenges, peaks of experiences, or the highs and lows of life. Deserts could be about solitude, a spiritual quest, and often were used for periods of searching or self-discovery. Windows and doors often stood for opportunities, gateways to new experiences, or perspectives on the world. Bridges represent connections, transitions, and overcoming obstacles, moving from one phase or idea to another. Eyes were used to show consciousness, the soul, or a gateway to another realm or state of being. Many other symbols were used. Songs often explored dream worlds, visions, alternate realities, and deep space. A song about demons might only be about one's struggles or living in our society. I invite you to interpret these songs in your own way. Make them yours, as if they are speaking to you directly. Let the songs move you, allowing you to see things in a different, more freeing way. This can be expanded into film as well, and of course literature. Also, allow yourself to be original or have alternative interpretations. What are other ways to view these, other than the obvious? This is a great practice to expand our minds, to enhance our thinking abilities. If you value this content, please subscribe, like, and let others know. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.